Today's our topic that name is a force. Let us talk about the contents we have to study into the force, which is related with the work, energy, units of measurement, types and transformation of energy, principle of the machines, efficiency and mechanical advantage of a machine, principle of a friction, body mechanism, lever, pulley and the transaction, attraction, inclined plane and wedge screw, and applications of principle in a nursing. See, this is important for your study to why we should be used for a force type of the things into the nursing field. Let us talk about the first one, force, then that definition. Definition: force changes the state of rest or of uniform motion of the body. Means force which are the changes the state, means ki whatever type of the force we are given to the patient or to the any kind of the machinery thing which is the state rest or uniform motion of the body. It gives to the uniform motion. Motion means a try for the force. An object at a rest cannot change its position unless it is pulled or pushed. Means ki any type of the object which rest cannot change its positions unless which is pulled or pushed. Next one, drug in the syringe should be pushed while giving the injection. See, this is one type of the example. What type of force which are used for applying into the medical field? Okay, whatever type of the drug which are given by the syringe to the patient, it always gives to the some push and the force while giving the injection. Next one, what is the SI unit of the force? So everybody know about that, which is Newton, and force is a vector quantity, which is the vector of the quantity. Quantity means ki we have to going to be quality and the quantity. This is the vector type of the quantity. Which are the types of the force? There are the frictional force and gravitational force. There are the types of the force. This is the frictional force and the second one is the gravitational force. Let us talk about in detail. Frictional force. Frictional force which is refers to the force generated by two surfaces that contact with a slide against each other. Means ki what is called as the frictional force, which is refers to the force which is generate, means ki during by the two forces which are contact with the slide against each other. See, this is the force you are applied and this is the slide of the frictions which is passed by in force direction. This is called as the frictional force. Now, we cannot move if there were no friction. Means if we are not moving, we are talking about the bones joint formation. If between two bones, the joint bone factor it is not identified any type of the friction or any lubricant fluid which is available between of the bones, we can't going to be walk very safely and very easily. So to move joints in our body, we have to overcome the friction. Means ki just like synovial fluid which is observed into the between of the two bones, right? See, this is the synovial fluid. It gives the lubrication factor between the two bones. In friction becomes large in the joints and it leads to disease. If the become this frictions which is become going to be less, large joints it is going to be less, it leads to the different type of the friction related of the disease. Saliva lubricates to the mouth. Means ki whenever we are talking, speaking, smiling, yeah, any kind of the mouth activity we are doing, salivary gives to the lubricant factor to the mouth. Heart, lungs and the intestines are in a constant motion, which are in all these organs, and the slippery mucus minimize the friction, means heart, lungs and the intestines which are constant in a motion, which is gives in a motion. In all these organs, slippery mucus minimizes the friction, means ki whatever type of the friction which are observed, it gives to the minimize to the friction by the mucus factor. To minimize irritation due to friction while inserting gastriatic tubes and rectal tube, lubricant which is required, means to minimize for the irritation which due to the friction while inserting the gastriatic tube and the rectal tube, which is goes for the gastriatic tube and the rectal tube, lubricant which is required. If we are applying any type of the tube into the organ factors related of the medical factor, the lubrication factor which is observed, which is required. Here gives some a picture about them, so you can understand about the picture by the anterior feeding pump which is inserted into the gastriatic pipe, which is gives to the frictional plus mucus factor, so it is easily passed by to this organ. Next one, second force, that name is the gravitational force. The gravitational force is a force that attracts any two object with the mass, means ki what is called as the gravitational force, which is the force which are attracted by the two object with the mass. During blood transfusion, a blood gets from the hanging back to the patient body because of the gravitational force, means ki during for the blood transfusion, blood will be gets from the hanging back to the patient body because of the gravitational force, which is gives to the gravitational force, so which is going to be under the gravitational force factor. Right, next one, Newton's law about the motion. So there are three type of the Newton's law of the force. First one, Newton's first law, Newton's second law and Newton's third law. First we are talking about that what is called as the Newton's first law. Let's talk about them. Newton's first law states that an object will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an external force, means Newton's first law which states that an object will be going to be remain at rest or in uniform motion. Uniform means ki a uniform motion in a straight line unless which is acted upon by an external force, which is gives whatever act we are done, which is depends on to the outer force. How much amount of the outer force which is applied onto that object, and that directions will be forwarded in that directed factor, right? So this is the Newton's first law. Next one, which is also known as the law of the inertia, means this is Newton's first law which is also known as the law of the inertia. What is called as the inertia? That which is the inertia is the tendency of an object to remain at rest or in a motion. What is called as inertial factor? So whatever tendency of the object which is remain at rest or in a motion, which is going to be rest, means ki state position it is going to be state, in a motion it is going to be motion, it is depends on to the tendency factor. This is called as the inertial factor. Example, standing in a bus we experience a backward jerk when the bus suddenly started. If we are going on a traveling factor into the bus, so whenever the jerk which is applied, it indicates that if we are bus is moving, our body is also in moving, but the action which are not observed, but any type of the brake which is applied, any type of the jerk which is applied, our body which is going to be in a direction. This is called as the force, means ki this is a type of the bus suddenly started, we are feeling some jerk. So this is called as the Newton's first law. Next one. While handling the wheelchair, both starting and stopping should be gradual. Means ki the both starting and the stopping should be gradual. If wheelchair suddenly gets into the motion, the patient's head may be thrown back and causing an injury. Means ki while the handling the wheelchair, both starting and stopping should be gradual. Gradual means ki a lower to the higher. Suddenly it is increased by the gradually, lower to the higher, slower to the faster, or faster to the slower, turn by turn. This is called as the gradually. If wheelchair suddenly gets in motion, the patient's head may thrown back, causing an injury. If the patient's head means ki a wheelchair get in a motion, if it is going to be in a motion in a forward direction, in a force direction, the patient's head thrown be back, means ki it's going to be back and get some injury. A bed at rest has a tendency to stay at rest. We need to apply a large force to move it. Means a bed rest has a tendency to stay at the rest. But we need to apply a large force to move it. When it is in a motion, whenever it is observed into the motion, it continues to be in a motion. Means ki whenever we are in motion, we are going to be continuously into the motions. Next one. Forces of the friction opposes the motion, and so it requires some force to keep it moving. Means ki the force of the friction which is oppose the motion. What is how to be applied by the friction? The motion which is require some force like less than the force which is needed to start or to stop, which indicates that to keep in a moving. Due to inertia of the motion, it is easier to keep the bed in moving than to start and the stop. Means due to of the inertia, we are talking about standing and the standing fraction and moving into the moving fraction. This is called as the inertial NIM, means ki inertial definition. The inertial factor of the motion, it is indicated the easier to keep the bed in a moving than to start and the stop. Next one. Person falling on the road while getting down from a moving bus. Means ki person falling on the ground, on the road during of getting down from the moving the bus. This is because the lower part of the body come to rest suddenly. Means this is because of the lower part of the body comes which is rest by the suddenly. Apart from the inertia, another aspect of first law is force. Means ki apart from the inertia, which are the another aspects of the first law, which is the force. Force can change the speed of the body, direction of the motion of the body, or the shape of the body. Always the force which is going to be changed by the speed of the body, direction of the motion, means ki which is give to direction of the motion, body or the shape of the body. This is the going to of the force which is indicated, which gives to the shape change, motion change. It depends on it. Force produces acceleration in the body. When force is applied to a stationary body, it starts moving. Means ki force produce accelerating what is the body. When force which is applied to a stationary body, it starts moving. Means ki whenever it is started moving, it is force will be applied which is in a stationary. Stationary means ki whatever movement or whatever thing which is going to be started in a straight direction. This is called as the stationary body. Okay. Its initial velocity is 0. Its initial velocity which is the 0, and the force produces acceleration in the body, making it move faster. Means the force which are produced accelerated by the acceleration in the body which make it move the faster. The accelerations which is produced in the body by the force which is depends on the mass of the body. Means the accelerated product in the body which by the force which are depends on the mass of the body, means ki which are depend on to the mass of the body. Now the figure A and the figure B, what is indicated? Let's talk about them. If equal force are applied on the two objects, one with smaller mass and other is the larger mass. This is the smaller, this is the larger. More accelerations which is required by the object with the smaller mass. Means ki obviously whenever weight is very higher compared to the non-weight thing, it gives the higher energy to slide over there. A large force must be applied to the large mass for it to have the same acceleration. Newton's first law enables us to define inertia. Means ki this is the limitation of the Newton's first law. It's unable to us to define the inertial factor, but this does not give us a quantitative measures of the force. Means ki which is quantitative measure of the force. This is given in the second law. Means this is the proven factor which are observed into the second law of the Newton. Let's talk about them. Now the Newton's second law. The Newton's second law states the accelerations of an object which is depends upon two variables, the net force acting upon the object and the mass of the object. Means ki what is the second law? The second law which states that the accelerations of an object which is depends upon two variables. What are the variables? Variable reasons, whatever by the variables net force which are acting upon the object and the mass of the objects which are depend on to the acting, whatever type of the force you are applied and whatever type of the object which are moving forward by this direction. An impact made by an object depends on two things, its mass and the velocity. Means ki this impact which is made by an object which depends on the two things which are its mass and the velocity. Next one, here this is the some calculation factor of the formula which is given here. F is equal to m into a. F represent the force, m is equal to mass and a is the acceleration. So this is the F is equal to m into a. Next one, here some gives animated pictures to understand about the Newton's second law. To get in a wagon to accelerate, you have to apply the pull. Means ki in this factor you can't apply a higher force, but in this manner these things which is very higher, put it down into this trolley and it gives a very heavy, it looks like very heavy, so it slide by in a forward direction. Whatever force you are applied, whatever amount of the force you are applied, which is always a flow or a slide in a force direction. Okay, here this is one of the things. This is the swinging to the children. Here the mass of the wagon increase, a greater pulse necessary to accelerate. Here this is the accelerated factor and this is the forward motion in a direction. Swinging and the stretching means this is the pulling down into the forward direction. It is depends on to the how much amount of the force you are applied on this trolley, right? Next one, often several force act onto the body. With that means ki often, which is several, means ki different type of the force which are act by on the body. Forces which is causes change in a motion of the body, means ki which causes the changes by the motion in the body. Means ki force which are causes change the motion of the body. There is an agent which makes it possible. Means ki there is an agent which makes it possible. Example, feet and the hands. Like feet while playing the football and hands while playing a volleyball are the agents. These are the agent of the example of the force which is applied by the feet and the hands. Force arises from interactions between the system. Means force which is applied by the interactions between the system, which by the body which are moving. Newton's third law. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. It's have the equal and the opposite reaction. An important consequences of this law is that forces always appear in a pair. A single force never exists. Means important consequences of this law, which is a law is that forces always appear in a pair. Always appear in a pair. A single force never exist. One of the given force which are never going to be exist. The force of action and the reaction act on different bodies. Means ki it is depends on to the different bodies how to be force which is gives in action and the reactions. Here the rocket factor which is observed here, which is going to be in a space. So it's a release the higher energy, and that's the reason behind it is forward going in a into the sky or into the space. So which gives how much amount of the energy which is going to be forced by in a opposite direction of the gravitational force, that much amount of the force the object will moving into the space. See, this is the early stage and this is the late stage of the forward factor. Means ki whatever forces which is applied here, some tabulative factor which is going to be observed here. Means ki the pages which is going to be observed in a forward direction, whatever amount of the factor which are observed. This is the early stage, this is the last stage of the SOR which is observed here. Means ki which is going to be in a forward direction. Here which is indicated that this is the early stage which is started by the slowly to the very severe factor. Next one, the weight of the body of the patient which is laying in the bed pushed against the mattress, in turn of the mattress push him to the upward. Means ki the whatever this is called as the bed rest, means ki who the patients are observed in a very higher position into one of the direction which is observed. Means ki the patients which is rest in a one motion, this is called as the resting factor, which is laying in the bed and pushed against the mattress. In turn, the mattress pushed him upward. The third law which helps us to understand why patients in a bed for long period of the time which develop the bed sores. Means ki the third law which helps us to understand why patient is bed for the long period of the time and develop a bed sores. Means ki why it is develop a bed sores, due to of the motion or the one of a side bed resting factor. So this is because the heavier part of the body, means ki bony parts, pressed more firmly against the mattress than the lighter portion, and it turns receive a greater reaction force. Means ki this is why reason the heavier part of the body, means ki bony parts means ki small parts, which is pressed more firmly. Firmly means ki evenly against the mattress than the lighter portions, and in turn receive a greater reaction of the force. Next one, forces for the body. What are the forces which are observed by the body? So there are several forces of the body. In the following discussions, uniform circulations of the motion and forces used in motions are discussed. Whatever we have to plan to discuss for force of the body, this is the indicated for uniform, and the forces used for motions which are discussed. Next one, the uniform circulations motion. The uniform circular motions can be described as the motion of an object in a circle at the constant speed. Means ki what are the circulations of the motion? The uniform circular motions which can be described as the motion of an object, whatever object which is there, in a circle at a constant speed, which is observed by in a constant speed. Means ki if the circular track, which is the sun, planets, earth and moon, which have the some orbital uniformly, which is the rounding, means ki it's move circular motions, which is described on the circular constant speed. Next one, a body in a circular motions has variable velocity because a direction changed continuously. Body which is in a circular motion has a variable velocity, which is because of its direction which changes by the continuously. Forces which gives rise to uniform circular motions, which are centripetal force and centrifugal force. Means ki the uniform circular motions which is depends by a two factor. It gives the centripetal force and another one is the centrifugal, which is the language of the centrifugation machine. It separate a sedimentation factor as according to the Newton's law and the speed of the RPM as according to the set of the RPM, which is separated to given sample as the settle down of the any debris by the given frictional force to the outer force. Centripetal force, a force that acts on a body moving in a circular path and is directed towards the center around which the body is moving. Means what is called as the centripetal force? The force which is act onto the on a body moving in a circular path and is directed towards the center around which the body is moving. Means if the body is moving, which is depends on to the centripetal force. Next one, centrifugal force. How to be applied by the centrifugal force? The centrifugal force which is apparent outward force on a mass when it is rotated. Means ki whenever it is started by the rotating, the force which is started by this condition, this is the center of point. It is gives into the gravitational factor by the central and the centrifugal force. Right. So which are depends by the centripetal force, which is depend by the centrifugal force. So which is appear outward force to a mass when which is rotated. Means if started here given to the some car over here, but in a centrifugal force which is depends by in a central point to the frictional portion. Example, centrifuge and washing machine. This is the example of the centrifugal force to separate by the any center to the centrifugal factor. Next one, what is called as the work? Work is the product of the force and displacement. This is called as the work. What is called as the work? Which is the product of the force. This is the produced by the after the force and displacement. Work is done by a force when its point of applications moves in the direction of the force. Means ki work which is done by the force and its point of the applications which is move in the direction of the force. Example, nurse lifting a baby, shifting a patient from bed to the trolley. Means example, nurse who is lifting to the baby, shifting a patient from the bed by the trolley. Next one. Here the measurement of the work. Work is equal to applied force into distance. Means ki W is equal to FD. Applied force by in a Newton and distance into the meter is equal to W. Work is equal to F into D. Energy. The capacity to do the work which is known as the energy. Means ki whatever work capacity we have to do by the work which are known as the energy. Our body gets energy from the food we eat. Means ki our body which is get energy by the food whatever we eat the food. The food energy which is used by the body to operate its the various organ, means whatever type of the food we are taken, it's convert into the energy and gets our organ nourish. Means this is the our end product. How what is the moral to take the food? So this is the give to the nourishment to the organs. Energy unit, which is the joule. Obviously, what is the unit of the energy? This is the joule. In nursing, kilocalories are used to measure food energy. Means ki in the nursing field, kilocalories which are used to identify food energy. Next one. Calorie, which is defined as the energy required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree of the centigrade. Means ki whenever energy which is consumed, it produces the heat. Whatever work you are applied, that time a minor amount of the heat, this is naturally produced by 1 gram of the water by the 1 degree of the centigrade. Types and transformation of the energy. The energy exit in a various forms, like depending on the source of energy can be classified as mechanical, heat, sound, electrical, magnetic, chemical, nuclear, etc. Means ki the types and transformation of the energy which is observed by exist, means ki consist in which form of the energy which are consumed or exit. So like which is depending on the source of which can be classified in mechanical, heat and the sound, electrical, magnetic, chemical and the nuclear. Next one, in our body, chemical energy which is converted into the mechanical work. Means ki in our body, the chemical energy which is converted by the mechanical work, like what is called as the kinetic energy. So kinetic energy means ki Ke of an object is the energy that is processed due to its motion. Like see, kinetic energy, it is indicated to produce the energy of an object which is energy which is processed due to its motion. It gives by its motion, like K is equal to 1/2 mv square, like Ke is equal to kinetic energy which is equal to 1/2 mv square, m is equal to mass and v is equal to velocity. Right? This is the formula of the kinetic energy. Simple. We are not going to in a detail, but you are just understand about the physics law behind of the force and the energy factor. Next one, the potential energy. The potential energy is energy that is stored within an object. Means ki the potential energy, potentiality means ki whatever a potentialitical factor of energy which is stored within an object, and the stored energy which is potentially available to be changed to kinetic energy. Means ki the stored energy which have the potentially for available to be changed to the kinetic. Kinetic means ki motion, movement of the energy. The potential energy which is Pe is equal to mgh, where m is equal to mass, g is equal to 9.8 n upon kg, h is equal to height. Means ki this is the potential energetic factor which are observed by this factor. P is equal to mgh, m is equal to mass in kg, g is equal to 9.8 n upon kg, and h is equal to height in a meter. Okay. So here this is the potential energy. Whatever type of the potential energy which are applied over there. See, this is the height, this is the mass, and this is the product which are going to in a deep direction, means in a gravitational force. So this is deep down. The potential energy transfer into the kinetic energy. This is the stored energy which is going into the motion, means ki movement energy. So which is depends on to the height. Throw back the ball into the height to the deep vector. This is depends on to the potential factor.